The clock above the espresso machine ticked past 11:00 p.m., the hour when most of the city was asleep and the streets outside lay quiet. Emily wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that night. The small 24-hour cafe where she worked was never bustling this late. Just the occasional student buried in books or a weary traveler stopping for caffeine before a long drive, and then there was him. The man in the corner booth. He had been coming for weeks now, always at the same time, always ordering the same thing. A plain black coffee, no sugar, no cream, no dessert, no snack, just coffee, and a quiet presence that was both mysterious and oddly comforting. His clothes were simple, well fitted but not flashy. His hair was neat but a touch disheveled at the edges, as though he didn't care much about appearances anymore. Emily noticed his eyes most of all. They were tired, not the tired of someone who had been awake too long, but the tired of someone who had been carrying a heavy weight for far too many years. He never stayed long, just long enough to sip his drink, leave a generous tip, and disappear into the night. She wondered who he was, and why, of all places in the city, he chose this small cafe every single night. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of her. The cafe was nearly empty that night, the hum of the refrigerator and the soft rain outside the only sounds. He sat in his usual booth, gazing out the window at the glistening pavement. Emily grabbed a fresh pot of coffee and walked over. "Mind if I top you off?" she asked. He glanced at her, then at the cup. "Sure," she hesitated. "You come here a lot." He gave the faintest hint of a smile. "I like the coffee." "That's it," she teased lightly. "Not the world class service." This time he chuckled, a soft, almost rusty sound, as if laughter wasn't something he used often. "All right," he said, "the service too." She pulled out a chair without asking and sat down for a moment. They talked about the rain, about how the city seemed quieter lately, and somehow about which coffee blend was the best. She learned his name, Daniel, but not much else. Over the next few weeks, their conversations grew longer. Emily learned that he liked jazz, preferred winter over summer, and read books late into the night. But there was always a wall, polite but firm, whenever the topic drifted toward his personal life. One night, the sky split open with thunder, and rain pounded against the cafe windows in relentless sheets. The street outside was deserted. Inside, the power flickered twice, then went out completely. Emily lit candles and placed them on each table, the warm glow filling the space with a strange, intimate stillness. Daniel was still in his corner, his coffee cup between his hands, staring at the flickering flame. "You okay?" she asked softly. He nodded, but then, after a long pause, he said, "It's been years since I've sat in candlelight like this." She tilted her head. "Why's that?" He took a deep breath, as though deciding whether to open a door he'd kept locked for too long. "My wife, she used to light candles every evening, said they made the world softer." His voice grew quieter. "She passed away 6 years ago. Since then, the house, it's just dark." Emily felt her chest tighten. "I'm so sorry. She was my anchor," Daniel continued. "When she was gone, I thought the company, the work, would keep me going. I run a large firm, manufacturing. People think being at the top means you're surrounded by people. Truth is, it's the loneliest place you can be." Emily blinked in surprise. "You're a CEO." He gave a small shrug. "Here, I'm just a man who drinks coffee. That's why I come. No one wants a favor, no one expects anything from me. You just bring the coffee and it feels normal." A week later, the cafe was buzzing with tension. The owner, Mr. Harris, stood behind the counter, talking in a low voice with his wife. Emily caught pieces of the conversation. Rent increase, can't keep up, might have to close. Her heart sank. This place wasn't just her job, it was her safe haven, her second home. She forced a smile that night as she served Daniel his coffee, but he noticed. "You're quieter than usual," he said. "Just tired," she replied quickly. But Daniel studied her face for a moment longer, as though filing away the truth. The next morning, Emily arrived at the cafe to find Mr. Harris beaming. "You'll never believe this," he said. "Someone paid the rent for the entire year, in advance, no name, no note, just a receipt." Emily's thoughts instantly went to Daniel. When he came in that night, she wanted to thank him, to say she knew it was him. But he only sat down, ordered his usual, and when she brought it over, he smiled faintly. "Good to see you," he said, as if nothing had changed. As the weeks passed, Daniel's visits became more than just a habit. He started coming earlier, staying longer. He laughed more, shared stories about his travels, and even brought in a book once to lend to Emily. One evening, as he stood to leave, he paused by the counter. "This place saved me," he said quietly. Emily blinked. "Saved you?" He nodded. "When I first came here, I didn't realize how badly I needed a place to just be, to talk, to feel like a person again. Thank you for the coffee and for not asking for anything more." Her throat tightened. "Daniel, you've given more than you know." He smiled then, a genuine, unguarded smile. "We saved each other, I guess." From that night on, the corner booth was unofficially his. The coffee was always ready when he walked in, and Emily knew that sometimes the smallest acts, pouring a cup, listening to a story, showing up night after night, could change a life. And in a way, they both knew this was no longer just about coffee. Sometimes, the most profound connections grow in the quietest places: a corner booth, a steaming cup of coffee, and the willingness to simply listen. Emily never set out to change a life, and Daniel never expected a small cafe to mend the loneliness he carried for years. Yet, through kindness freely given and compassion without expectation, two strangers became a source of light for each other. It was never just about the coffee. It was about being seen, heard, and valued for who you truly are. And in a world where people often rush past one another, Emily and Daniel's story is a reminder that slowing down, noticing someone, and offering a little warmth can be the beginning of something life-changing. Because sometimes showing up is the greatest act of love we can give and receive.